hi, Jax. Say hi to the video. Hi. Alright. In this video, I just wanted to talk about my last photographic exhibition, which was last May. Just talk about the steps I took within my own project to prepare for a show like that, and a little bit about what goes into putting the show together on a more collaborative note, because this was a collaborative show. There's about 15 of us in it. The show consisted of, the materials I was getting was still images. I was going to the events and just taking photos and documenting that. The second main part of the installation was interviews that I conducted with 3 people in total. The goal was to have 5, but 2 of them fell through, and I was on a time crunch at one point, and there's just not enough time to add more. But I think 3 was sufficient, and I definitely want to do more interviews in the future, but that's for another time. But yeah, so once I gathered, I was happy with all the images, and I was happy with the interviews. The next step after that to prepare for the show was to pick out my favorite images. First of all, the images that I felt like were getting my message across, or what I was trying to get across. It's not always easy to get your point across in a 2D image. So in terms of like editing images and all that, I use Lightroom exclusively for cataloging and filing my images, editing and printing from. You can do a lot with Lightroom, and I think it's a very good program. There are others, of course. Whatever works for you, that's just what works for me. I started off looking at my whole catalog of images for the project, and then rating it to get it down to contenders for what I wanted to print out and put onto the wall. From there, dwindling it down to even less pictures. Just trying to find the top candidates pretty much. So after the initial edits of the images, I would start to prepare to do test prints of each image. And the reason for test prints is because what you see on the screen is 95% of the time completely different from what you're getting on paper. The type of paper you use, the color profiles that you're giving the computer and the printer affects everything. So you have to do test prints to make sure what you're seeing on the screen is matching as close as what you're getting on paper. So at that point, a big thing I'm looking at is the color, highlights and shadows, and just making sure they all look exactly how I want them to look. So that's the biggest thing for the images I selected. Like in terms of editing and preparing the images, that's really all there is to it. Just selecting which images you felt like were best, and I definitely got second opinions and third opinions from friends about what they felt like were the best, and I took that into consideration. And then once I had my selection, I would make the edits, the test prints, and then the final prints. In this case, depending if you're framing or not, you could go straight to the framing process. Personally, I did not frame this time. Frames can be extremely expensive, and that's something we all learn in this hobby or career, if you will. And so while I'm getting my images, the actual pictures ready for this show, I have my interviews too that I need to focus on at the same time. So what I did was I focused a lot on the images first and got them ready. Once I was done with the images, that was the easier part, I felt like. I then went on and put a lot of focus onto my interviews next. And what I did was, the actual interviews themselves, I recorded video and audio, of course. And then I used Descript, but there's a lot of different options to do this. But I transcribed the audio, so I had pretty much text. I turned the audio into text onto a document, and this helps especially with just being able to read it instead of just listening. And I could make edits and highlights specific parts that I wanted to use. But yeah, transcribing definitely made it way easier. But that's what I did. I got a document of all the text and then went through it from there. In the interviews also afterwards, I did portraits. I took portraits of all my interviewees because I knew I wanted to put those alongside a printed out quote or section from the interviews. So yeah, another important thing was to figure out how you want your installation to look. There's so many different ways and different things you can do in installation, and I didn't really figure that out until about a month before the show, which is a little bit of time crunch, depending on what you do. And so the installation style that I decided to go with was a collage style. So it was pretty much instead of like a grid or something like that, I had images overlapping each other that weren't framed. I have a picture here. I think I had about in total I had about 22 or 23 images, and the image in the middle, which with the True Love wheel, was printed on vinyl. So that image was actually stuck onto the wall with adhesive on the back, and that was about a 40 by 60 inch print. So it was pretty big. It's the biggest I've printed, but it was really cool to do that. I really enjoyed having that image so big, and I felt like it was the perfect photo to go in the middle, given the nature of the image, with the focal point being in the middle with a lot of empty space around it, where the collaged images fit perfectly. And on the outside was a mix of metallic and matte papers. So the 4 corner images, the biggest ones in each corner, were metallic, and everything else, all the smaller images around that, was printed on matte paper of varying sizes. I think I did 1114, 1319, and 1722 inches for the collaged images. And then on the very left side, as you can see, I had the portraits of each interviewee, and then right on the right side next to it was a printout of a section from their interview that I did with them. And so around all these images, I also decided to put they're like little disco ball pieces of glass or mirror. You can order them on Amazon. They're like little squares that reflect. So I speckled those all around the edges of the installation, and I also put a bunch under a little zine I made to go along with this project. So you can see the zine right here. This was just a little book I made that had a little bit more interviews, not interviews, but it had a little bit more images and just some more stuff to read. So just like a little bit of a deeper insight into the project. And then the last thing to put all this together was the artist statement that each of us did. And the artist statement is usually has your name, the project title, and then just a short description of your project. You can say whatever you want to say, really, up to you. So that was pretty much it in setting up for my part of the show, my installation. Preparing your own project is just one part of a collaborative exhibition, because then you have the whole show to still worry about and everything that goes into putting together the show. So this was a collaborative show. There was about 15 of us, I believe, in this room. Each of us with our own work and our own installations. So there was a lot of variety of what to look at in themes of work. There's themes of fashion, fast food, grief, Chicano culture, love, all that. And that's a really cool thing about having a collaborative show, that there's just so much to see, and you have all these artists showing their work and their own artistry. In preparation for the show, we made different tasks, groups of tasks for people to take on. I was a part of figuring out the food and drink situation and getting those from the store, and also I was partly responsible for figuring out the floor plans, or where everybody was going to go, and whose installation was going to go with whose. Is this theme good with this theme, stuff like that. Where certain artwork goes, can definitely change the whole dynamic. So preparing for food is pretty simple. Food and water, drinks, all that. It's pretty simple. I would ask my classmates for donations, and then I would take whatever money I got and then just go to the store and get light snacks and drinks. Usually crackers, cookies, sodas, waters, and Capri Suns. Chips, dips. Some of our friends, I think, made desserts, and tea, for example, too. So we had a good variety of stuff. I think it was pretty good. Setting up the floor plans can be stressful, but that easily turns into everybody's job, and in the end, the professor's job, because some people don't want to be here nor there. They don't want to be next to this person, and not in like a drama way, but potentially those two artworks they feel like don't work together, which is a fair assessment. And in the end, the professor was making a lot of changes to where everybody was going, and that was fine with me. I feel like the professor has a bit more experience than us, so you just gotta trust the professor. Another important job was doing like digital media and a little bit of the marketing for getting the word out of this show. And thanks to John Wong, one of my classmates, he's the graphic design guy. He made posters, he designed the posters, postcards, but that is an important job to have to get the word out. This is just a postcard that he made for this show. The show was called End of the Roll. I don't think I said that, but that's what we decided on the show name. So it has that, and then Sac State Photography Senior Showcase. And on the back of the postcard, you can design it however you want, but the title, and then address, dates, etc., etc. This also got painted onto a wall inside the exhibition itself, so you'll see a picture here. But that was a pretty cool addition, I think. Like right when you walk into the doors, you just have this big yellow wall with the title, and that was pretty cool. Overall, the turnout for the show was pretty good, I would say. Kind of in the beginning of the show, we had these artist talks. Each of us, or it was volunteer based, so you don't have to do it. Not everybody did it, but we got in front of everyone at the show, made like a slideshow of the pictures and just whatever you wanted about your project, and just did a Pecha Kucha talk, which is supposed to be like 20 seconds on 20 slides, I believe. And you're supposed to talk, mostly talk, not have a lot of words on it. But it's just an explanation of your whole project and how you got to where you got to, where you started, whatever you wanted. It's always good to talk about what you're working on, getting some opinions too, opinions that you can trust, for sure, definitely help. I had a couple people talk to me after that, and they told me that they were happy to see like my thought process leading up to that final installation and that project in general. Like from doing the research, the things I was finding out about the culture, all of that. Yeah, so a lot of my friends also came, which I'm very grateful for, supporting me. Even some of the people I met in the lowrider community came out, and that was very fulfilling. And they have very nice words, and I'm extremely happy that they got to see everything I was working up towards. They're able to see themselves up there and all the beautiful images I was able to capture of their lifestyle. A couple of them went on days that wasn't like a reception, just a walk-in day. And Lee Staton, he's someone I reached out to for an interview, and unfortunately the timing just didn't work out, which is okay. But I see him around at the events, and he's on the cover of the book. I'll put that picture here. He's on top of his car, and he has his son driving. So his son is also really into the culture too, because he drives his car, and he hops in and everything. It's really cool to see that bond between them. Yeah, he came, and he one night I checked the lowrider Facebook group for Sacramento. One night I opened it up, and he posted. I was trying to find the picture, but he was just explaining how grateful he is to first be on the cover of that book, and grateful for the community being shown in these types of places, museums and like an art exhibition. It's not something that is very common to see. I felt like the work I was making, the project in total was partly doing its job. It felt very good to know that the people I was making friends with were really appreciating what I was doing. And but yeah, it was, like I said, the turnout was very good, and I'm very happy with everything. And even seeing the projects that my peers were working on, some of them I helped a lot with creating some of that work, and it was really nice to see the end result, to see them culminate into what was shown at the show. One of my favorites, and I don't mean to like pick and choose favorites, but one of my favorite projects was Olivia's, which was, she called it Within Nature's Embrace. I really like her project, and maybe because I helped a decent amount on some of the pictures, and so I was there for the, what do you call it, behind the scenes pretty much. But that's about it, to be honest. There's a lot of like small things that I'm sure I missed out on that goes into putting on these shows, but I think that was the main points I was able to get across. So yeah, that was my senior show. So I don't know when my next show will be, but yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.